Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So this is called Thorns and Briars. I locked my heart in a box and put that box on a shelf. I am the room of a house surrounded by thorns and briars. They parted to let me through, then closed behind me again, and I went out into the world, unafraid because heartless. I did the work I was told, completed the tasks I was given, nodded and smiled. So they thought I was such a reliable girl. But all that time, my heart was beating in a box, made of some fancy wood. Inlaid with mother of pearl, I gathered credentials, gained titles and honours, was granted suitable recompense, while the thorns and the briars grew higher, until you could no longer see the small grey house behind, and my heart was safe on the shelf from either theft or scrutiny. The thorns and briars will only part for the one predestined to rescue my heart from the box. So someday I'll return and open the gate. Then the tangle of thorns and briars will part to make a path to the door of the house and all the roses. The simple dog roses, the elegant albas, gallicas, portlands and those canes will burst into bloom, white and pink and red. In the room, surrounded by books and dust, I will take the box off the shelf and reclaim my heart as preordained. The next is the rose child. Wandering among the roses in my garden, I found a child only 5 inches tall. Under a Madame Hardy she was standing, on mulch, leaning against one of the rose canes. I bent down to look at her, and she looked back fearlessly. She was lean and brown, dressed in dormouse skin, cleverly sewn together. She raised one hand, and I saw that she was armed with a long, sharp thorn. She was not threatening me, just showing me that she was not defenseless. She shook the cane, and rose petals fell down around her like summer snow. What should I do? She was a child, but clearly self-sufficient, in no need of help from me, so I did nothing. Every morning, when I went to check the roses for black spot Japanese beetles, I would see her, or traces of her, a fid speared on a thorn, a pile of raspberries pilfered from my garden. I didn't mind. She could take what she wanted. Would it be wrong of me to leave her something? And what would be useful to her? String, I thought, toothpicks, pieces of felt, cut of apple. I would leave them under the blossoming Kusna nymph or Cardinal Richelieu, where they were always taken. And one morning I found a Japanese beetle spitted on a toothpick, and the next morning I found 2. I think it was a way of thanking me. She must have noticed what they do to roses, how they eat the leaves and petals, chewing through them until they are only a series of ragged holes held together by a spiderweb of veins. I did not see her again for a long time. Just tiny footsteps where I had raked the soil. But one day I found her lying under the bird bath. Immediately I could tell there was something wrong. She was pale, her breathing irregular, in quick gasps. She lay with her arms wrapped around her torso, the way you do when you're trying to hold yourself together. What should I have done? We're always told not to touch the wild things. Abandoned thorns aren't really abandoned. Mother birds may return for fallen fledglings. But she was a girl. A wild girl, but still human. I put her in a shoebox, lined with batting. I carried her up to the porch, which had a screen to keep out insects, but was not indoors exactly. I brought her the sorts of things I thought she ate, In the wilderness on my garden, raspberries, sliced peaches, lettuce, peas, asparagus, sprouts, even a frog I had to spare myself. But I had seen her thorn, so I knew she hunted. She ate it raw, all except the skin and bones. Nothing seemed to help. Each day she would eat less, sleep more. Slowly she grew sicker, coughing and feverish with the typical symptoms of a respiratory infection, something viral that even her strong system couldn't fight off. One day she stopped eating altogether. She drank water from a thimble, that was all. The next morning I sat with her as she closed her eyes. Then it was over, so quickly and peacefully. As a bird flies from its nest, I buried her by the edge of the woods under the stand of maples. I put a stone there, grey with quartz. Then winter came, and I was sick myself. At my age, I don't get over these things so easily. Not as I used to. Meanwhile, the garden lay dormant, snowbound. I mostly stared at it from the kitchen window. When spring came and all the snow was melted, I walked around to survey what had been damaged. The rose canes were dry and brown. I'd have to prune them, so new green shoots could spring from above the graft to form flowering midsummer arches. The vegetable garden was covered with burlap. I peeled it back to see what had survived underneath, mostly beets and turnips. Almost an afterthought, I walked to a grave. In front of the stone was heaped a strange assortment: acorns, a piece of faded ribbon, the cap from a soda bottle, several sharpened sticks, a bright blue plastic button. I started to sweep. I swept it away as rubbish, then suddenly realised, no, these were grave goods, as ancient tribes would honour their dead by burying them with weapons supplies for the afterlife. Later that day, I brought the thimble she had drunk from and left it there, like a chalice at a church altar. But every morning I'd go and leave something, berries, and when the roses had started blooming again, the finest blossom I could find that morning, fragrant, still covered with dew. It was midsummer before I started to see them, the wild children, no larger than she had been, dressed in skins with weapons just like hers. Now when I'm in the garden, deadheading the lilies or cutting back the mint, sometimes I'll see one, sitting on the old stone wall, enjoying the sunshine, never speaking, just being companionable. Or one will be leaning on a tomato trellis, arms crossed, watching the birds in the lilac bushes. Sometimes I leave out something they might find useful, a ragged handkerchief, a knitting needle. That would make a fine spear. But I try not to interfere in their lives. Some things should be left as they are. At my age, I've learned that, I hope eventually, when I'm buried by the edge of the woods myself, which is what I've arranged for, they will come visit, leave me bits of ribbon, a buttons, and maybe a rose every once in a while. It makes the thought of death easier. Somehow, that they would still be climbing up the branches of the apple tree, or fishing in the pond, or maybe dancing under the moon, if indeed they do that. I've never seen them. Just tiny tracks in the newly prepared bed, where I was planning to sow the radish seeds. If they could visit me just once or twice, even if there's nothing of me left to know or care, I definitely like that. And those are the two fairy tales of the most wondrous flowers, of course. Flowers are just amazing. I especially love roses. Roses, orchids and lilies. Beautiful. Thank you for listening and many blessings.